hideout. One guy piles out of the back, and they're spraying the brush line and everything, and a guy comes running around the back, and he helps me into the back, and they run me all the way across the rice paddy. Now, the week before, Captain Hine had been in on R&R, and Lieutenant Hurt, whoever was talking about Dave, Lieutenant Hurt, he was acting company commander, and when they loaded me on the chopper for the dust-off, they were sliding me on, and Lieutenant Hurt reached and grabbed me, and I was looking, I was laying down, and he's pulling me on. Both my legs were pretty swollen, and he's pulling me on, and he says, Jim, you wouldn't have been hit. You wouldn't have been shot had I still been the company commander. And that always resonated with me because he was a good man. Lieutenant Hurt was a good man. They dusted me off. I went to 27th Medical Vac. Well, 3 days later, all of a sudden the doors come kicking open in the 27th Medical Vac, and Russ is being pushed in by Ken Mew, sergeant in our squad. Gary Augustine had stepped on a mine and messed him up, and Russell got hurt, and yeah. Anyway, Chuck got hurt, and anyway, they were in 91st. Most of them were in 91st, except Russell and Ken Mew come bebopping in on me, and in the 27th, and we never saw those guys again. All of them were hurt pretty bad. But I went back to the field, and I was with Sergeant Uncle and Lieutenant Nivasak, and you never knew what you were really doing at all. This film that shows everybody dancing around nude and everything, I never, I'm on there where I go like this, and pretty much Tom Nowak and Phil Payne and Ferguson. Yeah, there was quite a few guys. I can name all of them off. Anyway, I got back from Nam, and I was sent to. I was supposed to go to Fort Hood, Texas, and anyway, I called the. I don't know. I had my fiance, who was my wife, write a letter, and she wrote a letter to the senator that was elected in our state of Oregon. And he wrote back and he said, well, he says, I don't have any control over the military, but if you're not satisfied with your duty station upon your return, call this number. So I called it. Nobody answered, so I let it ring for, but I didn't know it was a holiday, a federal holiday. No offense, man. He was a postal worker, so I ended up being a postal worker too. I'll get to that in a minute, but we ended up, the wife and I got married 7 days after I got back. We eloped and went down to Reno and got married. We'd been engaged for over a year. Her mom still says that I took her baby away from her. We were engaged for over a year. We went together. I chased her all through high school, and here, her mom doesn't like me, I think. But no, she doesn't. We've been married for, 40 plus years. Yeah, it's about as long as I've been back. Well, it is 7 days. But anyway, she's the better part. I have two daughters, Jennifer Marie and Jacqueline Kay. My youngest one has a hearing impairment. She was born with this hearing impairment. She has to wear a hearing aid in her ears so she can hear. She reads lips, so be aware if my daughter's ever around it. She can definitely tell you exactly what you're saying. And then one school teacher had said, well, lip reading is just guessing. Well, that's BS. If anybody's ever been around somebody who's got a really bad hearing impairment and they learn to read lips, she went to school when she was 13 months old. We took her to school, infant hearing research in Portland, Oregon. Every day, the wife and I would take her to school, and the oldest daughter went. So she ended up, she can read lips, she's doing real well. But I checked to see if Agent Orange had anything to do with that, because I guess it don't. They don't want to take responsibility with it anyway. So, but yeah, I pretty much became a truck driver. And I've lost quite a few jobs. I got kind of a short fuse, and so I ended up going to work. I was going to be a letter carrier up in the Dalles. Well, I didn't know what a letter carrier was. A postal exam. I went up, drove 2 hours to get to it. took the exam, and then they said, you're the only disabled vet that put in for it. And I thought, wow. He said, it's yours, but I said, well, what actually do you do? And he said, well, you deliver mail and you sort mail. And it's a PTF. And I go, what's that? It's a part-time flex. I said, in other words, I'm going to be on call? And he goes, yeah. I said, well, I don't want that. He says, okay, well, we'll bypass you. So they did. So 2 more years I was driving truck, and so then I told the wife I got laid off from my truck driving job, so I decided that I would see it. The post office has 48 and 53 foot trailers. They don't haul doubles or anything, which I was qualified for. So anyway, I went and applied, and the guy says, wow, you got more experience than anybody that's ever drove for these guys. Not now, though. They changed the rules because so many guys, they were training people how to drive tractor trailer. Well, that's not, you know, to train somebody, you're going to have accidents. And so anyway, they ended up making restrictions now, so a lot of professional drivers are driving for the Postal Service, plus the liability of it. Anyway, I got 7 grandkids. My oldest grandson's 18. My second one is 17. They played football in Fort Collins, but it's actually Castle Rock, Colorado. Fort Collins is Steve Ferguson. I saw him and Mike Swartz. Mike Swartz from Snohomish, Washington. He was in second platoon. And I don't know if I said that nude film that you got. I can probably tell you who everybody is on that. Well, I was looking at the black guy. I have to look at it again. I think that was Taylor, but I wouldn't swear to it. Okay. Anyway, I thank all of you. This is the first one I've ever been to. It's good to see Hamilton. We came home together. We went over there together, and best of friends, brother and comrades and everything. He's a good man. And Grover, John, Dave, Paul. Anyway, God bless all of you, Chuck and Russell. God bless all of you, and thanks for... I was there from January 70 to the last of December 70. And anyway, I guess I'm done. All right, thanks.
My name is Mick Erdman, and my wife was going to be here this weekend, but unfortunately she had an issue at her employment, and so she couldn't make it. But she did tell me to make sure that I espouse to the principle of the 4 S's when public speaking. Stand up, speak up, shut up, and sit down. And she said, if they put a microphone in front of you, please, please try and keep it within a day and a half. And I think after following Jim, I don't have to worry about that. I'll start kind of in reverse order. And again, I would like to thank Lynn and John and everyone else who put this together, because not many days go by that I don't think about my time of service, and especially my time in Delta Company, and certain individuals who have inspired me to this day. I waited later in life to marry. I was 34 years old. I lost the manual and then found it and finally figured out, oh, this is the way it's supposed to work. So I married a lovely woman named Sheila, and we had 2 wonderful children. My son Nathan is 27 and is just about to tender his resignation with 3M, in which case he will leave for Vienna, Austria, and enroll at the University of Vienna in a master's program in supply, logistics and supply management. Our daughter Colleen just moved back home, where she is student teaching at a school where she did her elementary education, and she'll graduate from the University of Iowa in December and then enroll at the University of Minnesota, where she will be pursuing a master's degree in teaching the deaf and hard of hearing. So that's why Jim and I, because she is also hearing impaired. And Jim, you and I can talk about that. I was a little older when I enlisted, and like Larry, I said, screw the government, they're not going to draft me, so I enlisted. So I did my basic in AIT at Fort Lewis, Washington, and I joined Delta Company upon return from a 2-week leave after basic in AIT. I had the pleasure, I got some good leadership experience in basic and AIT. I was a squad leader in both basic and AIT, probably because I had a college degree and I was older, and I don't know, maybe I looked a little bit brighter than somebody else. I don't know why. But anyhow, I joined Delta Company, and when one of the first person that I really remember in Delta Company that had a settling effect on me was First Sergeant Pirtle, because he put us all at ease, us brand new guys. You know, here was the first sergeant. We were accustomed to coming to the position of parade rest in the presence of a first sergeant. He said, "Hey, just settle down. Just settle down." So when someone made the comment when they first hit the field, they were all set for combat. We were at a pacification drill. They flew us out, and the first person to come out to meet us was Captain Hicks. He was dressed in skivvies, T-shirt, Ho Chi Minh sandals, and he had a can of Budweiser in his hand. I thought, what an introduction to this is the combat zone. Well, we were out there for a day, and then we came back, and we were in the stand-down area when sappers came in and blew that up, and all the rigmarole that went with that. And I was introduced to, going back to the combat center, one of the guys that I got to know there, and we ended up coming together, was Gary Murtha. And Gary and I talked about when we were going to go to the field. He said, I want to be near the pig, the 60. He says, that's where the most firepower is. He says, I want to be an assistant gunner. So he said, what do you want to be? And I said, well, I'd like to be a point man. And he looked at me as if I was some kind of idiot. And I said, no. I said, there's nothing I hate worse than being somewhere where you don't know what's going on. At least up front, you know what's going on. And so we got to the pacification drill, and I'm sorry I can't remember the squad leader's name, but I was introduced to my team leader, Paul Hamilton. And the squad leader said, well, what do you guys want to be? And Murtha said, I want to be an assistant gunner. So he said, okay, we got a position for you. And he looked at me and says, what do you want to be? And Murtha turned to me, and I won't repeat exactly what he said. He said, okay, blankety blank, now here's your chance. Put up or shut up. So I did. And eventually, when we did go out on our first mission, I had heard about this guy everybody kept telling me about check, Grover Cash. Everybody. Paul, that's all he talked about was check. And Grover had been at sniper school, and then he rejoined the company, and we knew each other for about 3 days. And he taught me how to walk point. And I was there the day that we had that incident on that hill near Anfuk, and when so many of us were wounded. My inspiration that day not only was Grover with the calmness that he exhibited, but Paul Hamilton. And I can still remember Paul when Colonel Richardson came in and dropped down, and they were all wounded, and Colonel Richardson said something to Paul about calling in artillery, and we'd already had artillery checked by the Helix. They did a check fire on our request for artillery because of the proximity to the Ville. And Paul said, and I probably don't have this completely correct, Paul, but you said, Colonel, just lay there, stay out of the way, I'm in charge. And that was a Spec 4 telling a colonel, an 06. And good colonel that he was, he did exactly that. He stayed out of the way. The next bird came in, took all those 3 officers, got off, who were wounded, and Paul was in charge, and Paul was the one who got everybody out of there, and he's the one that deserves all the credit for what happened that day subsequent to the explosions. After I got out of the hospital, I went back to the unit for a short amount of time. Somebody found out that I knew how to type, and there was an IG coming up, and the company records were pretty much in disarray. So I came back, helped out Bill Schreiber, who was the company clerk. This gets a little foggy. Then I went back out, and then I came, one incident. When I came back to the unit, and Paul and I were held on we were on medical profile for a while. I think you then went on R&R, and I had gone back to the unit. Well, I hadn't taken out my stitches yet, because I didn't know what I was supposed to do. They called me, brought me back in, put me back in the hospital, 23rd bed. And so I go in, and I had stitches in the left leg and the right leg, and so this medic is pulling the stitches out of the right leg. And the doc came in and he says, no, he says, I don't want to do the left leg till tomorrow. And there were these two medics. Well, the medic who was pulling them out, the next day I show back up. Well, again, the medic who had taken the stitches out of the right leg wasn't there. It was the other guy that was brand new. And I said, well, what happened to the other guy? He said, oh, he deer-roasted. He says, you're my first patient. And so he starts pulling these stitches out, and he's not doing it right. So eventually, I pulled out my own stitches and went back to the unit. Also during my time, and then we had a change of command, and if you remember, Captain Levesque came in, Armand A. Levesque. And Captain Levesque got there just about the time they were going to do a records check. And there were 52 unit orders. There was something wrong with them, and they had to retype all of them. And so they retyped all the orders, but they needed the company commander's signature. And the people doing the records check were coming in the next morning. Well, where's Captain Levesque? He's downrange. So first sergeant came to me and he said, gosh, he said, what are we going to do about this? And I said, well, let me look at his signature. Well, Captain Levesque was left-handed. I said, if I turn the page 90 degrees, I forged 52 unit orders. To the point where Captain Levesque came in, was looking through them, he didn't recognize them. He said, they were his signatures. It looked just like, and to this day, I can write Armand A. Levesque, I think in my sleep. I can't tell you how much and how often I've thought of Paul Stowe. We've reminisced about that day. We were reminiscing last night. Jim Bissett. Jim? He's not? Okay. Well, he was with us last night. The Army has been good to me. I got out after Vietnam, or I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, where they handed me the keys of a 113 and said, this is yours. I said, what the hell am I going to do with that? I don't know. So, and then I left active duty thinking that I was never going to see it again. Was home a month, and somehow I found out about an infantry reserve unit in my hometown of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And I went up to visit with all my records and everything, and thinking, it was going to be hard to get in. Well, come to find out, there were only 3 other guys in the company that had active duty experience. The company commander had been an advisor in Vietnam, and when I put my records out in front of him, I thought he was going to jump over the desk and kiss me. And I heard we got a Vietnam veteran, combat veteran, NCO, and I signed on the dotted line, and the first drill I walked into, and I thought, my God, what have I gotten myself into? This is the Boy Scouts. Oh, yeah. We're so far advanced over there. And then followed almost immediately by the feeling of, well, here's an opportunity. And it kind of started from there. We got some people in. There was a real downslide in the 70s for personnel and beneficiaries. We had NCOs and
he was raised in the jungle, and he said, if you want to live, you do what I tell you. So I followed his direction, and here I am today. But anyway, I walked point for 3 months, and our medic derosed, and they said, we have a position for a medic who wants to volunteer. And I said, where do you get to walk? And they said, anywhere you want to. And I said, that would be me. I'll take that job. So they sent me to the rear for 3 days, and I was, you know how that goes. You know. Anyway, I didn't spend 2 or 3 weeks. That was 3 days. But I was in 2 days in the rear, and actually the squad that I was in walked into an ambush and killed our sergeant. And the guy walking point got an AK round through his helmet. It didn't kill him, it just knocked him out. So he lucked out there. Pretty good war souvenir, I guess. Anyway, so I went back out, and that's what I did for the rest of my time till we hit the booby trap that 7 of us were injured on, and I was the medic, so I was involved in every patrol we went on, every ambush. I didn't get a day off. I didn't get any lax time. I had to go on every patrol, which was, you know, I didn't realize that, but till it happened. But it was quite an experience, and I wouldn't change it for the world, but I don't know if I'd want to go through it again. Sure is nice meeting the people that I should know, and I remember a lot of you, and some people I just can't remember their names. It's been nice. You know, I'm glad you got a hold of me. I still don't know how you did that, but it was quite an experience, and I'm glad we all made it through it. I know our lives are extended and gone, and you know, we're everywhere. It's hard to keep track of people. I went for 40 years without talking to anyone that I was in the service with, and it's been a wonderful experience to come and celebrate this with everyone. And that's about all I got. So.
I'm not much of a speaker. I'm Chuck Krantz. I was in the 2nd platoon with Russ, Charlie McLean. I remember my draft papers the day I got married. I got my draft papers and was drafted in March of '69. Basic training at Fort Campbell, AIT at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and went home for leave and off to Vietnam. I was in the group with Gary Augustine, Russ, and 7 of us got wounded at the same time there. Like Russ, I put everything out of my mind when I got out of the service, and haven't spoken to anybody from Company D since. So I have 2 kids, a son and a daughter, and they each have 2 kids. I have 3 granddaughters and 1 grandson, and 3 of them are in college. So. Other than that, I was a steel worker for 45 years. I went back to work at the same place I was before I got drafted, after I got out of the service, and I worked there 45 years. I retired in June, and now wife and I are living the good life. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Howdy. My name's Charlie McLean, as Chuck McLean, Vietnam, Thunder days. I had a sweet thing going. I was going to college, you know, thing was great. I was partying my ass off. And, some of us got together one night, thought it'd be a real good idea to have a panty raid on a sorority. I got found out about it and got kicked out of school, Wayne State College in Nebraska, and the draft board in my hometown knew that I was available even before I got home. And so I got drafted in December of '68, inducted January of '69, and at the induction center, a gunnery sergeant came along and it was 1-2, you're a Marine, 1-2, you're a Marine. And I fortunately was a 1 or a 2, and so I figured, well, things are looking pretty good. I dodged that bullet, you know. And took basic and AIT at Lewis, came home for 30 days, and then went to Oakland and got shipped out, and first orders were for the it was for the 9th Infantry, and it just happened that the 9th was pulling out, and so they reassigned me to go to the Americal, and I went out to July and got sent to the 2nd Platoon of the 1st of the 6th, the 198th, Company D. First guy I saw when I got to my company area was Terry Andreessen, Swede, and he had hit a booby trap, and he was hobbling down Main Street, and this guy played football, I think either at Iowa State or Iowa University, big guy, and I saw this dude, and I'm going, man, you know, I think if all the guys are like that, you know, I'm a little runt out here, but I became good friends with him. I carried a radio for this guy right here, and I carried the radio for Swede, and I also did the medic bag for a while, and then I became a squad leader. And when Russ and Chuck and those guys went out on that patrol that day, for some reason I stayed back at the at our day logger. I hadn't written any letters for a while, and so I caught up writing letters, and the next thing I know, those guys all got hit, and shit, you know, it was like my squad was depleted, you know. Some of these guys I should know. I should know you, Jim, you know. I live in Oregon now, too. I live over in Gresham.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's just a short ways, huh?
Yeah, just across the city. But I've heard a lot about you, and we got to get together when we get back home. I've learned a lot about you, too. But my wife Millie is here with me, and yeah, I flew in from Kansas City, or from Portland to Kansas City, and then stayed there overnight with my sister, and then down here, and then I'll be heading back out tomorrow. But I'm really grateful to be here. I mean, seeing all you guys is like, you know, I was really reluctant. The 2nd Platoon has had previous reunions. They met once at the Wall, they met once here in Branson, and they met once in Sedona. And that, I have some pictures back over there that you might be interested in looking at. So anyway, I'm glad to be here. You're the greatest, and I'm happy to be a part of it. You know, I'm very proud of all of you. So thanks.
Thank you.